You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
And South Alabama has issued a warning to residents about a new scam involving QR codes. Residents are encouraged to stay informed and protect themselves.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Everybody, I'm here just multitasking this morning. You know, there are days that your day gets off to a great start, and then there are days, I think for most of us, like for me this morning, this day has gotten off to a Murphy's Law start for me. On Thursdays, I do a show out of Memphis before I do my show. Talked about it before, and it requires video, so I do it through a video link. And I sat in queue for 20 minutes. And finally, I just texted and said, listen, are you just let me know when you need me. And they had a problem. They didn't even think I was there. And so anyway, and on my way to my car this morning, as usual, I had my hands full. Chase, you see, I'm always coming in. I got a little black bag that I carry stuff in, and I carry a bottle of water, and I've been bringing my Pepsi Zero Sugar in as well. And I'm coming down the stairs at the condominium complex, First and Main, where I live, and I live on the third floor, so I'm going down the second floor, and a girl's coming around the corner, and I nearly run into her. I didn't, but so then we get on downstairs, and then I drop my Pepsi Zero Sugar trying to get in the car, so it's got dirt all over it. It's ready to spew, so obviously I didn't open it, but I wiped it off and I mean, these aren't real world problems, but that's kind of when my day is gone. So I got it here. I've put it in the refrigerator downstairs, hoping it'll, calm down before I open it here in a little while. But, and then just all this stuff I've got here all scattered out. So anyway, I sit down, Barry gets out of here. I sit down. It seems like Chase is already playing the music and I'm really not ready to go, but the show must go on anyway. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show, everybody, for this Thursday, September 19, 2024. I'm Gary Harris. Obviously, I mentioned Chase Brumfeld right there on the other side of the glass, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline at 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. So feel free to give us a call. Feel free to give us a call early if you want. Get me going here because I'm kind of lost right now at the moment. Notes are scattered everywhere, and just trying to kind of get my bearings. And that, as you might guess, based on how hectic it's been this morning, yes, I didn't get up and get going quite as early as I should have. That's another thing. I was running behind, so that always adds to your angst in the morning. But doing the 10 o'clock sports every night, getting home late, not getting into bed, sometimes it causes me to not want to, it makes me want to squeeze that pillow a little bit in the mornings. But we're here, we're ready to go, and we're ready to rock and roll on the Gary Harris Show. So let me give you the lineup real quick in just a moment. But first, I need to tell you, as always, this hour of the Gary Harris Show is being brought to you, as always, by Alabama Credit Union. Discover the heart and soul of our member-owned credit union, empowering our members, enriching our community. Alabama Credit Union is more than just a financial institution. It's a member-owned community deeply rooted in rich historical values. Our central focus is empowering members, driving us to positively impact the community through financial success. Man, that is a great, great mission right there. Alabama Credit Union, think about it, member-owned and not-for-profit. Unlike a traditional banking institution that's taking its profits and paying off its shareholders, Alabama Credit Union is taking its profits and returning them to you, the member, in the form of lower interest rates on loans and higher dividends. That's something we can all get excited about. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money. and put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, full lineup today, 9:30, the coach, Ellis Johnson, break down SEC football for us this weekend. Of course, Alabama and Georgia both on a bye, getting ready for that showdown 9 days from now. At 10 o'clock, it is going to be D. Orlando Ledbetter, Atlanta Falcons beat writer. And hey, after that disappointing loss at home to start the season to the Steelers, the Falcons pulled one out miraculously against the Eagles on Monday night. So they get a big win before having to face the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll just visit with D. Orlando Ledbetter, the 1-1 Falcons getting ready to face the Super Bowl, two-time defending Super Bowl champions. Then at 10:30, my pal Jeff Spiegel, sports anchor, ABC 3340, host of The Zone. He will be with us as well. So we got a great lineup for you today and a good show on tap. And like I said, I'm kind of getting everything squared away here, but ready to go. All right, I'm going to start out this morning with a topic on something that's really just kind of eaten at me the last couple of days. When it first happened, I just said, well, that's just the way it is. The team is awful. He has not played well. But the more that I think about what has happened with Bryce Young, really the madder I get as somebody that's covered Bryce Young, that knows what kind of, young man that he appears to be, high character, team leader, great player at Alabama, great player. And I get it. College and the NFL is different. But as the number 1 overall pick, just last year, he had to go through a coaching change in the middle of the season, finishing out with an interim, battled through, played hard, played tough, took hits, and the results weren't there. The one game that he didn't start last year, but as a starter, he was 2-14. The team was 2-15, and then he was 0-2 this year. But in the offseason, they bring in a new coaching staff. Dave Canales, the head coach, who'd been the offensive coordinator at Tampa. And then they don't really let him play in the preseason, one series. And they get out in the first 2 games, and it does not go well. I mean, they get blown out by the Saints and the Chargers. And then he's benched. 2 games in. Benched for 36-year-old Andy Dalton, who has been a good quarterback. I'm not knocking Andy Dalton, not his fault. But benched on a team that has so many issues all over the team. Offense, defense, special teams, new coaching staff, turmoil in the front office. This is a team that even couldn't hold on to its best defensive player. Brian Burns is now a member of the New York Giants. Offensively, the offensive line is below average. The wide receivers are below average. Tua Hubbard, the running back, is okay. And Bryce is asked to quarterback all this and then not given an opportunity to play through it and try to get better, pulled out and benched, and a statement is made that, Bryce, you're the problem. You're the reason we can't win. Dave Canales says Andy Dalton gives us the best chance to win. Well, what does that say? That says that Bryce Young is the problem, because we believe by changing quarterbacks, we can fix the problem. I don't agree with that line of thinking at all. But it is what it is, and I think it's clear now. Now, maybe they're saying this will be good for him in the long run, and maybe that is their plan. Maybe that is their plan, to let him sit for a while and bring him back. But that is not the way this has been portrayed at all. All Canales said is, we're trying to do the best that we can to win, and Andy Dalton gives us that best chance. And another thing you've done is, while he probably is done in Carolina, you've also thrown out the baby with the bathwater, in that you've hurt yourself from the standpoint you're going to have a hard time trading Bryce Young and getting anything for him, because the number 1 overall pick now is not going to demand a first-round draft pick, a second-round draft pick. I mean, folks are going to say, listen, you don't want him. Why should we give you anything more than, a mid-round draft pick? Or I don't know what pick. But if I were a team that needed a quarterback, I know this, I'd be on the phone with the Carolina Panthers front office, and I would be trying to get together and get me an opportunity to get Bryce Young. Still just 23 years old. Tons of talent, ability. I mean, he didn't forget how to play quarterback. The throws that he made at Alabama were throws that made it clear to everyone that if he wasn't going to be the first pick in the draft, he was going to be the second pick. He was going to be a top 3 pick regardless of who took him. That's the type of talent he has. And we're now seeing other quarterbacks that have been through something similar, maybe not this quickly, pop up in other places and play well because the talent is still there. And there were a lot of people that gave up on Baker Mayfield, a lot of people that gave up on Sam Darnold, a lot of people that gave up on these guys, and somewhere along the line they get another opportunity. But I just don't see where, as bad as this team is, I don't see where changing the quarterback is going to change their fortunes. Now, listen, they play the Raiders on Sunday in Las Vegas. I guess you could say if Andy Dalton goes out there and throws for 300 yards and the Panthers score 20-something or 30 points and win the game, people will say, see there? I mean, and you know what? And maybe in the short term they're right. But in the long term, a 23-year-old number 1 overall pick versus a 36-year-old quarterback who is playing out the string. I still don't know that that's, even if Andy Dalton plays better in the short term, that's the right move. I mean, but it tells you that they're not committed to Bryce Young. That's what it tells me. Dave Canales and that coaching staff and that front office are saying, we didn't draft the guy. We don't want him. That's what it tells me. So all I can do as a fan of Bryce Young, someone who covered him in college, is hope that he gets through this. I think he will. He's a strong character person, strong in his faith, great family, that he will use it to fuel his fire, and somewhere along the line he'll get another opportunity and he'll be better because of it. That's really all you can hope. All right, 9:14 here on the Gary Harris Show. A couple of other quick notes. The Braves did win last night over the Reds 7-1, but so did the Mets. The Mets won again too. So the Braves are still 2 back in the wild card. Bama volleyball last night at home against UNA, North Alabama, and got swept in 3 sets. Ouch. Nothing again. Hey, listen, give UNA credit, but I didn't expect the UNA Lions to roll in here from Florence, Alabama and sweep Alabama in 3 sets. But and it's only Alabama's second match loss of the season. They were 8-1. So really that one caught me off guard. So they're now 8-2 on the season. Really a little bit slower here than normally it would be, again, because Alabama being on the bye week. But those are a couple of notes. Of course, Alabama will continue to work this week, getting ready, and then, once they get into next week, it'll be full speed ahead for the Georgia Bulldogs. But those are a couple of notes, and we're off and running. All right, it's 9:15. We'll take a break. Tom, you hold tight. We'll get to you on the other side on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline 205-342-9904. I just wanted to open there with that on Bryce Young because it's been on my mind, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, like I said, maybe Andy Dalton will come in there and that'll be, the rest of the season he'll play great and they'll win a bunch of games and everyone will say they're right. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they're going to win a bunch of games regardless of who the quarterback is, because I don't think the quarterback is the problem, but we'll see. All right, we'll be back with phone calls, and we've got the Coach Ellis Johnson coming up at 9:30. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM, WTBC, your home for Alabama sports. As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special Monday.
CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Para.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and
house-made queso, sweet vinaigrette dressing, and spicy Cajun sauce. And check out our breakfast catering menu. Blue's Q and Brew is open 7 days a week. We're located at 1825 McFarland Boulevard North in the Northridge Center. Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside on the beautiful patio. Come by and say hello to Kim and Lisa, the Billy's Management Dream Team. Billy's, good food, good friends, and good times.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama. On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:19. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Phone lines are ready to roll. We're going to get to Tom to lead us off, and then Robert over in Birmingham. But first, let's get to Tom this morning to get us cranked up here on the show. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, good morning, Gary. I really enjoyed your monologue this morning on Bryce. It's very thought-provoking, and you made some extremely good points. And I got news for you. Andy Dalton has not thrown for 300 yards behind better teams than what the Carolina Panthers have at this point. He's not going to do it with them either. And I too agree with you that I don't have anything against Dalton, but the Panthers have been a dumpster fire for some time now, and I hated it when they drafted Bryce, and I was hoping for better. But I would say this. Could it be that they say, look, our quarterback's going to get killed, we just don't want Bryce to be the one to get killed?
Yeah, it could be, I guess. I don't know. I
would have come out and said it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And plus that would be flawed logic a little bit, but I don't think that the way that Canales framed it, he didn't beat around the bush and say, we just want Bryce to look, sit on the sideline, stand on the sidelines a couple of games and watch it from the sideline to see if there's some stuff he's missing. He came out and said, Andy Dalton gives us the best chance to win. And my job as the head coach is to give us the best chance. So he framed it clearly that this was a benching to move forward with a different quarterback. It wasn't a benching to kind of, we're not committed to Bryce long term. It was just simply, we got to try to win now. And that's what we believe is going to give us a chance to win. So the whole way that they handled it didn't leave a lot of wiggle room for anything other than this guy's not good enough right now. The guy behind him is better, and that's the direction that we're going in. So, yeah, for me, it's very disappointing. It's their organization, head coach, general manager, owner. They can do whatever they want to do. But I just don't see how you can go back now and ask, Bryce Young to be a viable option for you at quarterback. Now, if on the second snap of the game, Andy Dalton gets hit and gets hurt, I'm assuming they would go to Bryce over their third team quarterback. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I would assume. But outside of an injury right now to Andy Dalton, Bryce is the backup.
Yeah, I agree. And, but I just thought about it. But, since you stated what you did, you're correct. If the coach had any gumption whatsoever, he would have said, you know what, this is on me, and took responsibility for it. And like you said, look, we're going to sit Bryce for a little while and sort some things out and let him sort some things out. We don't want to destroy his confidence completely. And and go that route. But anyway, I know you got other callers, and Coach Ellis is coming on. I'll talk to you another time.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the phone call. And I don't understand for the life of me when I look at this Bryce situation why they didn't play him some in the preseason. You got a new coaching staff, a new system, and just through practice, you're expecting him to be ready to go. I understand teams don't want to get guys hurt, but that's why there is a preseason. That's why there's an exhibition season. And like I said before, I come from an era in the 70s when you played 14 games, but you played 6 preseason games. 6 preseason games. And I don't think you need 6. They cut it back to 4, and I think now it's down to 3. And now they don't want to play anybody in those games anyway. But those games serve a valuable part of putting a good team together, man. Not just looking at guys who probably aren't going to make the team, but using those games to get your starters ready. And people aren't doing that. All right, let's jump back out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, 205-342-9904. And our pal Robert over in Birmingham is with us. Hey, Robert.
Good morning, Gary. I hope you're good, buddy.
Yes, sir.
I think regarding Bryce, it was more about, do you remember, I went to Mac Jones' last game last year at MetLife Stadium in New York, and I followed the Patriots extremely close the last, those 3 years Matt was up there. And you remember at the end, Matt was starting to see kind of ghost. He was starting to kind of, the rush was so bad. They had no talent on the outside. He was just, that's why they benched Bryce. I don't know if the coach, the organization sucks. We all know that. Is a coach for him or against him? The coach wants to win, but I think he was starting to kind of see, he was looking at the rush instead of looking down the field. All the things you saw Max start to do it there at the end before he got benched. That's what was going on. I got friends that live in Charlotte, and they said, I said, am I seeing this the right way? They said, yes. We all familiar with what happened with Max. So I think it was more of that than just, I think that's what it was. I mean, if you keep playing him, and you have they did not upgrade their offensive line. They have no talent outside. People are not getting separation. If there's a quarterback and you're young, you eventually start kind of getting PTSD from it.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all, Robert. Here's the situation, though. If that was the case, you're not going to let him play through it, or you're going to, and I same thing. I still think Mac Jones can play football in the NFL, and I think Bryce Young can too. But the problem with that logic is, and I know it was a different group, and obviously C.J. Stroud is in a much better situation, but I would argue that most rookie quarterbacks shouldn't play. Like I said, I come from a time where very rarely did you get thrown out there. You usually, and even some of the top quarterbacks today had a chance to wait. It'd be much better if you went into a situation where you didn't have to play right away. And all of those things that you're saying, are true, that when you go out there with, young, inexperienced, but then it puzzles me even more as to why they didn't play him some in the preseason. Why they didn't try to get him familiar with this offense in game reps so they wouldn't be shell shocked. I mean, I just don't think they've helped the guy at all. Just like Mac's situation, once Josh McDaniels left, and because Mac Jones had a heck of a rookie year. A really good rookie year. A Pro Bowl caliber rookie year. He went to the Pro Bowl. And I know the Pro Bowl is watered down now, but still, he made it to the Pro Bowl. Almost beat Brady and the Bucs when he went head-to-head with Tom Brady. And then he just got terrible overnight? No. They lost McDaniels, and they brought in Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to run the offense.
That's Bill Belichick.
Yeah, he got him screwed up. And the same thing here with Bryce. I mean, it's just, it's unfortunate. And I'm not disagreeing with you about, you could see that he was a little bit shell shocked. At the same time, the way they handled this, they didn't say any of that though. It wasn't phrased as if, listen, we're going through a tough time. We're 2 games in. Our roster is not where we would like it to be. And for right now, we want Bryce just to stand on the sidelines and watch a 36-year-old veteran and see some things from a different perspective and watch the game and track the game, but not have to worry about taking the hits, not have to worry about making the plays. And, we want Bryce to see this as a learning opportunity. That's not the way it was phrased. It was phrased as, we're trying to win games. And this guy's going to give us a better chance to win. This guy's not any good. He didn't say literally he's not any good, but that's basically what he was saying. He didn't say, it's anybody else's issue. He didn't say it's the offensive line. He basically said, Canales said it's the quarterback. I'm changing the quarterback, and we're going to go try to win a game on Sunday. So if that was if what you're saying is the case, and it, probably is, why not give yourself some wiggle room? Why not try to take some of the responsibility off of Bryce's shoulders and at least frame it in a way that you could say, well, we want to go back to him at some point. The way I read this is that he's been benched and he's done. I mean, that's just the way I see it. And his best chance now is that another team steps up and, gives the Panthers enough that they will just go ahead and unload him to another team.
What do you think about Mac? I haven't watched the Jacksonville play at all their first two games. They're 0-2.
Well, I think Mac played exceptional in the preseason, and everything that I've read,
sure.
And I got a friend, I got a couple people I know that are actually in part of that organization that work for the Jaguars, and they're just thrilled with Mac Jones. The problem for Mac is he's not going to be the quarterback there unless an injury. Man, they've invested. They're paying Trevor Lawrence like he's a top 3 quarterback in the league, and he's maybe a top 10 quarterback, Robert. I mean, he's not bad. I mean, I would say he's a bad player, but he's not what they drafted. He's not what they thought they were getting with the number 1 overall pick. He's a top 10 quarterback. I would say he's probably more of a top 15 quarterback, but they've invested in him. Quarterbacks get overpaid, and that's what happens. And he's overpaid, and there's no way Mac gets an opportunity there. Mac, I think, unless there's an injury. But I think other people see that Mac has value. I think he'll be with another team next year and will have an opportunity to win a starting job.
I'm trying to say Jacksonville plays this. If they start out 0-3, I'm hoping they might give them. I'm hoping. I doubt
Won't happen. Won't happen. Unless it's 0-6 or 0-7 or 0-8, they're not going to bench Trevor Lawrence. Just not going to do it. Now
they play the Bills, and then they play the Texans. That's 0-5. The Colts. They can start out 1-5. Which maybe they would give them a chance.
I don't think this is a Bryce Young situation. This is a guy who got a second contract from this team. This was not a guy who was drafted there and is playing on a rookie contract. He has got, they've made him, they're paying him like he's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. So,
and he's not even close.
Don't see that. Guys. All right. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it, man. Good stuff. All right. 9:30. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back with the coach, Ellis Johnson, next here on the Gary Harris Show.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa at Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after hours of...
For the 5 for $5 wing deal.
Checkers with 2 locations, 15th Street in Tuscaloosa and McFarland Boulevard in Northport, open late.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour specials
at 3537 Skyland Boulevard East or online at bmwoftuscaloosa.com. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly to mostly sunny today. The high in the upper 80s at 88. Clear tonight, the low at 67. Tomorrow and Saturday, no change. Sunny both days, highs around 90. And Sunday, mostly sunny, the high also at 90. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3320 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. It's time for the coach, Ellis Johnson, to go around the SEC. And Alabama and Georgia, of course, both on bye this weekend, getting ready for that colossal showdown a week from Saturday night here in Tuscaloosa. And we'll jump full speed into that next week. We'll touch on it this morning. But right now, we got to look at some games that were played over the weekend. What a crazy weekend of football. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Gary.
Let's start with a couple of home underdogs, 2 teams that probably should have won but didn't. We'll begin with Kentucky, and this is what makes college football great. We all want to play the comparison game to some degree, and we've been told you can't do it in the SEC, but Kentucky looked absolutely dead in the water against South Carolina the week before, getting blown out at home. Georgia rolls in there as a 21-point underdog, and quite frankly, Kentucky probably deserved to win the football game. They didn't. They lost 13-12, and Georgia got out of there by the hair of their chinny chin, but maybe Mark Stoops at the end of the game should have gone for it instead of punting that football back. But nonetheless, what did you see in that game, and what allowed Kentucky to not only take it down to the wire, but probably, should have won the football game?
Yeah, it seemed to me it was sort of like Kentucky getting back to what Kentucky is, believing in themselves and the way they win games. But I thought the bigger story is Georgia just looked terrible. And it had a little bit to do with Kentucky, but their offense was just, compared to what they've been doing, was non-existent. Now, I've already said during this year, this offense Georgia has is not really nearly as good as last year and the year before. And they're not as dynamic even on defense as they have been. So I don't think this Georgia team, I think they're a little overranked coming into the season. But I mean, 12 first downs, under 50%, almost like 1/3 on third down, under 300 yards of offense, 160 passing. I mean, these are statistics of a group of five team playing an SEC team. Kentucky outdid them in every statistical area, but they had a turnover. And as you said, they lost that ball on downs there at the end, had to punt it, which is almost as bad as a turnover. So, hard to analyze, in my opinion, but I think the biggest story is I don't think Georgia's as good as everybody thought it would be coming into this season.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. And Kentucky lets one get away. Speaking of letting one get away, you're there in Columbia, very familiar, obviously having coached at South Carolina, and know Shane Beamer well. And they had that terrible opener against Old Dominion, and even though they won the game, went to Lexington and just steamrolled the Wildcats, and then come home with an incredible atmosphere against I don't know if we still have a good feel for what LSU is, but they're LSU. And South Carolina just jumped them, man, just pounced them, and in control in that game. And there's no other way to get around it. You give LSU credit for finding a way to win, but South Carolina shot themselves in the foot. I know the quarterback going out hampered them, obviously, but still should have won that game. And there was some questionable penalties, but late in the game, you get a pick six that clinches it, and you have a guy behind the play. I guess technically the quarterback at that point is a defender, but you just decide to shove the quarterback, and it just as stupid a penalty as I've seen. And LSU winds up winning that game. And South Carolina missed a field goal that would have tied it and forced overtime. But that one's going to sting for a while, because the Gamecocks had a chance to really, start off 3-0, 2-0 in the SEC. And, you're there. I mean, that's one of those that's going to linger for a while, I would think.
Yeah, it is. And they need to quit talking about the refs throughout the week, or they're going to end up having the players all stuck in that ditch and not moving forward. And they got an easy game this week with Akron, but it's shown that they don't play well in easy games like they did the first week. But the officiating was bad. Not for me to get off too far on that, but Jerry, I think in the added teams in the SEC, if you got more teams, you got to have more officials. If you're going to get more officials, you got to go get them somewhere.
Yep.
Now, they either got them out of another Power 5 conference and moved them over, or they bringing officials up from a lower level, and perhaps some of them are not as qualified as they have been, or perhaps they've not worked together as SEC crews. And there are a little bit different things that officials in different conferences, the way they emphasize. They don't have different rules, but they'll sort of have a different way of emphasizing certain things, and they'll have some no calls in one conference that are going to be called in another. But it was South Carolina's fault. They keep blaming on the officials. There were some bad calls against LSU early in the game, too, and it killed their momentum. The biggest thing that changed as the game wore on is LSU's offense was not sustaining drives. They were like 3-and-outs and 4-and-outs and so forth early in the game, and then they began to have some 10-play, 9-play, 11-play drives. The biggest thing football-wise that jumped out to me about South Carolina is they're a little bit one-dimensional in their front. They got some really athletic guys that can cause problems if you get forced into a pocket passing game. But if you can mix the run, the pass, if you got a physical offensive line, they're not very good against the run right now. And then the other thing, I thought the open field tackling was not real good. And I do agree with you, LSU's always got LSU players, but I don't see the elite talent in the perimeter on defense this year, and I don't think those running backs are as good as some they have had. Of course, they lost their good one, and they're playing a young freshman, I think, at running back. But he's a really good player, but he's not like some of them they've had, like Fournette and some of those guys, and they still could not get the guy on the ground.
All right, I got to ask you about Florida. You see A&M 33, Florida 20, and that doesn't tell the story. This was a more one-sided game than that. I mean, A&M went in there and had to play their backup quarterback at the last minute and just pounced on the Gators in the swamp. And now Florida goes to Mississippi State this weekend. I've had some people tell me there, Coach, that if Billy Napier were to lose this game in Starkville, and I think Florida will win it, because Mississippi State I think is worse than Florida. But if Florida were to lose that game Saturday in Starkville, that he might be out by Sunday. I mean, the heat is on. But what happened again? You still got a chance with a miserable start at home to make a statement against a pretty good A&M team, but a team that has to turn to its backup quarterback, and they blow you out, man. What in the heck is going on, Coach?
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a head scratcher, and I don't want to see him get fired. And I almost don't know why it hadn't already happened, because I think the world of Billy Napier. I go way back. My first year as head coach at Citadel, Billy was a quarterback at Furman. My big rival.
Told us that, yeah.
And I've known him since he was a kid. His dad was a coach. I've been in his school before. But I just don't know. I say, okay, on the positives, I think Texas A&M, they've been having a little quarterback musical chairs, and I think maybe they found one. He played well, really well. Florida, on the other hand, the guy had a flash in the pan the last game. They thought maybe this is going to be the guy, and they've been delicately juggling him and Mertz, and all of a sudden they didn't get the good play at quarterback. So I don't know. They're not playing well on the field. That's all I can say, and I just can't put my finger on it.
I don't want to spend too much time talking about Vanderbilt, because they are Vanderbilt, but I guess this is why Vandy, people say it, Vandy's Vandy. I mean, they got a chance to get to 3-0 start. You and I both asked, why are they going to Atlanta to play Georgia State in Atlanta? They were down most of that game. They rallied late to have a chance to win it, and then give up a, pass down the sideline to get beat. It's so hard at Vanderbilt, but Coach Lee had them going there a little bit, and then you stump your toe at Georgia State. I still think, regardless of where that game was played, I thought that was a game they were going to win, but they didn't.
I did too, because they've been playing well.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, Georgia State may have better athletes.
Yeah, they have.
Maybe not up front in all positions, but still speed. I mean, Coach Elliott was there at Georgia State, one of my old coaching mates. He lost great players to the portal every year, because it's such a fertile recruiting location, and they can go get some players with barely below the radar, and then they develop them, and everybody comes in and gets them. So I will say they've got some players there, and so Vanderbilt, wasn't walking in for a gimme. But I was really disappointed in this. I hate to see that. It's like they've taken 2 steps forward, and this was really a giant step back. And we've talked about it. I don't know why you take an SEC team on the road and play a group of 14 in their home state. Mm-hmm. It does not make any sense to me. But that's why you got beat, and that tells us that the bill is still not very good.
Before we dive into this weekend's games, I want to ask you a question about the SEC. I think it's and see if you agree or you may not agree. I think it is still the best league, obviously, and I think it's a really great league at the top. I think it's a top-heavy league. I think when you look at Texas and you look at Tennessee and you look at Georgia and you look at Alabama and you look at Ole Miss and you look at Missouri, those 6 teams to me, and I still may put Missouri a little bit below the other 5, but those 6 teams are elite teams, and I think there's a drop-off after that. I think then you've got a mid-tier with let's say Oklahoma and Texas A&M and LSU and South Carolina, Kentucky, Auburn. Even I might throw Arkansas in there, and then you got a bottom tier with Florida, Vandy, and Mississippi State. Do you agree with me that there's a big drop-off at the top of this league to the bottom of this league?
I think there is in performance and consistency. And athletes, you better be ready to play every week, or you can get beat. Now, I agree with you. There are three teams that somehow can't get out of their way: Florida, Vandy, and Mississippi State. And I know they're going through some tough situations and for different reasons, but I group them just about like you did. I do think, obviously, there's only about 7 teams that really got a shot to be in that 2-team championship game. But there's going to be some other teams like the Oklahomas, LSUs, Texas A&M, even South Carolina, Kentucky. They're going to beat somebody at the wrong time. It's going to destroy their season and hurt their chances to get in. So it is no question. It is the best league in the nation right now. I mean, just if you go look at the rankings, I think we're the 6th in the top 10 in the nation. And I can't remember the exact things, but I think they're like, I don't know, about 9 teams in the top 25.
Yeah.
But, I'm talking about the NCAA poll.
Yeah.
But, and you look at it, the next closest conference is the Big Ten. They got about 4 in the top 10, and they got about 6 in the whole top 25. So, no question, it's the best conference. It is a little bit top-heavy, but I do think it's more balanced than most other conferences.
All right, let's dive into this weekend's schedule. And obviously next week you got Georgia and Alabama, and that'll be the marquee game, not only in the SEC, but in the country. But you got some interesting games this week, and headlined by I think Oklahoma and Tennessee. You've got in Norman, you've got Tennessee, which has looked like a juggernaut so far on both sides of the ball. Dominant offense and defense. And you got Oklahoma, who kind of appears to be trying to find its way. You've got the Josh Heupel subplot. He played for OU. He got fired by Bob Stoops in 2015, which worked out well for him, but it didn't end well for him there. Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator at Clemson in the game that probably cost Heupel his job when Clemson ran Oklahoma out of the stadium in the bowl game. So all kinds of stories here. How do you see this matchup? I mean, I really think Tennessee's a more talented football team. What do you see in this game?
Well, we were talking a little while ago about what teams are in the top half, bottom half, so forth. This is a matchup between one of the teams that can ruin your season and one of the 6 or 7 teams we think has a chance to win championship. And it'll be interesting. Having it at Oklahoma's home stadium, I think, will help them. And they have played a little bit better offensively in the last couple of weeks. So I think it's going to be a better game than people think it is. But I do give Tennessee the edge. And the reason we know how well they're entertaining everybody on offense. But, I mean, Tennessee right now, they're number 2 in the nation in total defense. And then the most important team statistic, in my opinion, in college football, they're number 3 in points allowed. And the reason I think that, I've always said this, points allowed, the way colleges keep statistics, tells you a lot about every phase of the game. Because it tells you whether you're getting field position, if you're kicking game hurting or helping you, or you're scoring when you get chances to score, and is the defense giving you some field position. So if you're good at points allowed, you're probably pretty good in all 3 phases of the game. And so for a big change, they've been putting up points for a big change. Now, their defense is for real this year. But I'll say this, Oklahoma's played a really good team, a solid team in Tulane. I don't think Tennessee's really been tested this year and played a real good football team yet. Mm-hmm. And so I think it'll be a little closer game than people think, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. That's the great thing about it. They'll decide it on the field. That's going to be a Saturday night game in Norman. All right, we mentioned Vandy already. Missouri was tested by the Fighting Bill O'Briens. Boston College went into Columbia and gave them a heck of a ball game. Missouri got past that one. Now they host Vandy. This a blowout in your mind in the SEC opener for the Tigers?
Yes, and Vanderbilt will surprise you a lot of times and play well and make a game out of it. But it's kind of the same thing I just mentioned. Missouri's in the top 10 in scoring defense and total defense, and that's something. Their offense has always been pretty flashy, but again, the defense improvement in those areas is making some of these things really, really a test and a championship caliber team. I wasn't sure at the beginning of the year. I thought they were overrated, but they have played through that part. And, I mean, they're really playing all phases of the game, total football. If they get a chance, I think they're going to put a convincing win up there. I mean, there are 10 SEC teams right now that have not even played another SEC team.
I know.
And five of those in the top 10 in the NCAA. So, and you mentioned it earlier. It's really going to be week 5 when we start getting the SEC matchups. But we got some good ones with Tennessee, Oklahoma, and then Vandy, Missouri will be, it'll be a tough game. I think Missouri beats them soundly, and you may be getting to it. But I think probably the most important matchup for the teams that are involved is going to be Arkansas.
It is, and there's no doubt about it. These are two teams that seem very similar in terms of where they're at right now in their seasons, in terms of personnel. It's at Jordan-Hare, so you give Auburn an edge there. But this Arkansas team, took a step back against UAB, I thought, even though they won the game. Should have won at Oklahoma State. Auburn started the freshman Hank Brown against New Mexico, and he looked great, but that's New Mexico. So, yeah, handicap this game. Arkansas and Auburn, this is one of those that, if this is not a one-score game late, I'd be shocked between these two.
Yeah, well, they both have losses to two pretty good Power 5 teams, but in Cal and Oklahoma State, but they had a chance to win those games. When they left the stadium, it was almost like they lost to a worse team when they were playing pretty good teams. The other thing is they both got terrible performance in one of their games versus teams they should beat, and they did eventually beat, but they looked bad. I think both programs right now are thinking, who are we? And they're going to get tested this week where they find out, are we making progress or are we still floundering? Because both of them have shown some real inconsistency. I think obviously a big advantage for Auburn having them at Auburn. And Arkansas, if they don't play better than they have been playing, I think Auburn wins this one by a touchdown or more.
I want to ask you about Texas because Arch Manning, it's the cat's kind of out of the bag there with Ewers getting hurt in the last game against UTSA and Manning coming in and going crazy. A lot of people had Ewers as the Heisman favorite, and probably only when a Manning is involved could a guy who is your leader and a Heisman favorite. There are people in Texas now saying he may not get his job back. Texas gets ULM this weekend. Arch Manning at quarterback. I guess it's a good problem to have if you're Steve Sarkisian, but he played great. But are you stunned that now that he's kind of shown his stuff, that there are people actually saying maybe you have to stay with Arch Manning at quarterback?
I'm going to tell you, I would hate that. I wouldn't hate to make this decision. It's a lot easier than others, but I don't know why we're all surprised. We all knew Manning could play. And the fact that Ewers was holding him off told us how good he was.
Right.
A lot of folks who thought he'd be the first quarterback taken this year. And he's a lot better football player than I even thought he was, because I started watching him more closely this year. He makes great throws. He's an unbelievable player. It's almost like you ran out of, you hit the bottle and your Merlot is empty, and you go over to the wine cooler and you got two expensive bottles of cab sitting in there. Just take your pick, man. It doesn't matter if you run out, go get another one. That's two good quarterbacks that I guarantee you 50 to 100 teams in the NCAA would love to have.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's just crazy. All right, next week we dive in full speed ahead. But in our last minute here, Alabama and Georgia, I guess it worked out. You normally would say 3 weeks in a bye, but I think both these teams, this bye is coming at a good time for them. Both are banged up. Kind of get to hit the reset button before one of the biggest games of the year. So would you agree with me there that I guess it's good that one's playing and one's not playing. They both have their buys to kind of get focused on this big game next Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, because Georgia's coming out of a puzzling performance. Alabama's coming out of a little inconsistent, but a dynamic performance. So it's certainly good for Georgia, I think, that there's an open day right now. Alabama, I think it's certainly not a bad thing, but that ought to make it a better game. You'll see some almost like bowl type preparation for it, as far as resting certain players, getting the game plan ready, and all the other things you could do with those extra days. So that should be one. Of course, we've got to wait a week, but that should be one of the really marquee games in the nation, certainly in the SEC. And there are going to be 3 other really good ones that week too. But that's going to be a showdown that really going to kind of give us a little idea. A lot of these schools start playing these SEC matchups now. We'll get a better picture.
Yep, we will. Great stuff as always, Coach. We appreciate you, and we'll visit again next week.
Sounds great, Gary. Enjoyed it.
exciting than ever. It's time for the sports glory you deserve without breaking a sweat. The Sportsbook at Golden Moon Casino. Play the game. Must be 21.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly to mostly sunny today. The high in the upper 80s at 88. Clear tonight, the low at 67. Tomorrow and Saturday, no change. Sunny both days. Highs around 90. And Sunday, mostly sunny. The high also at 90. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, it's 9:57, and we shot through that first hour in a just like a snap of the fingers. Thanks to Ellis Johnson. Coach always brings some great insight. Hour number 2, we'll get it started with D. Orlando Ledbetter with the Falcons report. Atlanta getting a huge win at Philly on Monday night. Also, Jeff Spiegel will join us, so we'll get more of your phone calls in another hour. The Gary Harris Show is on the way. This
call 800-518-1409. That's 800-518-1409. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Monty Bolaños.
Week 3 of the NFL kicks off tonight with the Jets hosting the Patriots, and it all starts at 8:15 Eastern Time. And ESPN reports that there is a chance that Packers quarterback Jordan Love can make it back in time for Week 3 on Sunday against the Titans, despite what was projected to be a 3 to 4 week absence due to his knee injury. The NFL Network is reporting that Rams star wide receiver Cooper Kupp suffered a high ankle sprain in LA's loss on Sunday. He'll spend the next week or so in a cast, helping the swelling calm down. The team did not place him on injured reserve. There is still a chance he's ready within 4 weeks. In Major League Baseball, the Padres shut out the Astros 4-0 while the Dodgers defeated the Marlins 8-4. Shohei Ohtani did record his 49th stolen base in the win. The Tigers are now half game back of the Twins for the final wildcard spot in the American League after Detroit's win over Kansas City and the Twins lost to the Guardians. And the Yankees clinched a playoff spot with a 2-1 win over the Mariners.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, here we go. Hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld with you, and we're going to kick off this second hour with our friend D. Orlando Ledbetter, longtime Falcons beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, AJC.com, and it's the Falcons report, and we got some good news to report on this morning. Good morning, Orlando. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Well, we had talked about the possibility of the Falcons starting 0-5 if they didn't win that game against Pittsburgh, and they didn't at home. But they went to Philadelphia on Monday night, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think they would win that game, and quite frankly, it didn't look good late. And we'll get into the Sirianni's decision, but the bottom line is Philadelphia had the ball deep in Atlanta territory, inside the 10. The Falcons with no timeouts. Philly up 3, and they dial up a pass play to Barkley out in the flat. If he catches the ball, the game's over. Simple as that. But he didn't. He dropped it. And the Falcons kicked the field goal. The Eagles kicked the field goal. The Falcons got an extra timeout because of that, down 6. And give Atlanta credit. I mean, once they got their opportunity, Cousins took them right down the field. And that might be one of those drives that kind of turns the season around and gets people excited. Now we'll get to the Chiefs in a moment, but what a huge win for Atlanta when, quite frankly, they did look dead in the water.
Yeah, no question about it, Gary. They pulled the old rabbit out of the hat. Looks like some of that old work that Matt Ryan used to do on a regular basis on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, they get the win, and we'll talk about Falcons, but I do want to get your thought as a longtime NFL writer on the Eagles, because I would argue, now granted, listen, Barkley catches the ball. We're not even having this conversation, but he didn't. And then they put up a stat on ESPN that I guess he leads the NFL in drops from a running back over the last couple of seasons or whatever. Here's my point on this. You're up 3. Falcons have no timeouts. If you go for it on if you don't run it twice, you're probably going to make it with that offensive line. But if you don't, and you go for it on fourth down, if you get stopped twice, then the Falcons got it inside their 10 with no timeouts, and they're playing for a field goal at that point. They're not even probably thinking touchdown. So you at worst have overtime. Kicking the field goal, I think, actually led to Philadelphia losing the game because then the Falcons are in touchdown mode. I just think it was a terrible call. What did you make of the decision to throw the ball on third down there?
Yeah, just bad football. We're in this finesse era where,
Absolutely.
folks are scared to play power football. I mean, line it up and run the ball 4 times in a row with the clock winding down. We see these kind of boneheaded calls all around the league. Jet sweeps on 4th and 1 and pass plays in short yardage situations. It's just not how you play football. So whenever that happens and it doesn't go their way, that's always a good thing for the traditionalists who like to see old school smash mouth football.
Especially with the Eagles, because even with the changes to the rules, they still have that tush push, which is so effective. But this is a guy in Sirianni who likes to, I don't know. Initially, they caught fire. They went to the Super Bowl, could have won it. But now all of a sudden, like early in the game, it's 0-0 in the first quarter, and you got a 4th and go at the 4, and you go for it. Oh, but he's not the only one. You kind of mentioned this finesse era, these young coaches, the analytics, chasing points early in the game. If they kick the field goal there, they win the game regardless. I mean, we see this all over the league too. It's like 4th down now. Let's just go for it. I mean, where does that thinking come from?
The analytics guys, the owners have spent money on this. I trace it back to Moneyball in baseball, where they, that worked out okay for Oakland for a little while. But people have adopted a scientific, or tried to adopt a scientific approach to a real simple game, and it backfires.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers tell you, hey, go for it on 4th down, go for it on 4th down. And we're seeing that doesn't necessarily play out according to the numbers. You got real people out there.
That's right.
Blocking and tackling and not numbers. So they got the owners to spend all this money on analytics departments. Then they can go to them and say, hey, the analytics said go for it. And, they can second guess the numbers and not the people. So, that's just where we are. Maybe some teams will, pull away from that, but, certainly that's what they're doing and why people are going for it more in these situations.
Well, it worked out for the Falcons. And like I said earlier, they took advantage of their opportunity. Gives us some hope, because most of the game offensively they didn't do much. But Kirk Cousins looked like Matt Ryan, as you said on that final drive. Now you kind of get your fan base back. Because let's be honest, if you go 0-2 coming home to play the Chiefs, there aren't many Falcons fans that are going to think you got a chance. Now, it's a different vibe Sunday night for the Chiefs coming in. And even though Kansas City's 2-0, they could be 0-2. And some say they got gifted a win over the Bengals. So how do you see this matchup on Sunday night with the Falcons and the Chiefs?
Yeah, no question. I saw that game too. The Falcons and the Chiefs, so it'll be a trench battle. The Chiefs' offensive line's a little bit in disarray at left tackle. The Falcons got to block Chris Jones, who can mess up the whole game for you. But you do have your best blocker on him in Chris Lindstrom. But we saw him get beat against the Eagles, too. So he'll have to be on top of his game. They got enough weapons to attack that shaky secondary. Now it's just a matter if they can pass block like they did on that last drive. Bijan was a big part of the big plays there, not with his running, but he had the pickup block on the 41-yard touchdown pass, and he also had some chips on Bryce Hoff helping Caleb McGarry out there on the right side. He looked real good going at it and blocking, so they're working out their problems. They stole one, and now they got a chance to continue to grow as an offense as it's building out.
What do you think about Sunday night? You think the Falcons can win this game?
No, I don't. I think they can, but the teams we've seen in the first 2 weeks haven't put together a whole game. And to beat the defending champs, you're going to have to play a whole game. And, they played bits and pieces of it, gave up too much in the running game, 161, let Hurts get loose. So if they can shut down the run, that'll be key to winning the game because the Chiefs, got Kareem Hunt in there and Pacheco's out. So you got a shot to shut down the run, but then, the MVP's got the ball still, even if you shut down the run. So it's going to be a tough assignment for this team that's, building out. They're not, they've done some good things, no doubt, in the first couple of weeks, but you're going to need a full game against the Chiefs to pull that upset off.
D. Orlando Ledbetter with us, talking about the Atlanta Falcons with the Falcons Report. The NFC South, we enjoy it for regionally in-line teams. And early on, Falcons look okay. Obviously, the Panthers look awful. The Bucs look good. And the Saints look like a juggernaut. What do you make of the Saints this first 2 weeks? And listen, we know that Carr's got talent, got arm talent. We know he was close with the Raiders, but he seemed to always shoot himself in the foot, or somebody on his team did. But I know it's just 2 weeks, but the Saints have been dynamic on offense. What do you think about what the Saints have come out and done so far this season?
Yeah, very impressive what they've done thus far. Certainly running the football, which hasn't been their forte. It was more like just run enough so they could throw it. But Gary Kubiak is an outside zone guy, learned from his dad, and he's going to pound that rocket outside zone at you all day long if he can. And Carr is adept at throwing off of that. So they've been very impressive early on. The book on them is like, hey, yeah, they're good, but they're old. So if they can keep it going, past the midway point of the season and don't break down, they certainly look like a formidable foe.
And Tampa Bay does as well. And, of course, after the Kansas City game, the Falcons are going to get the Saints, the Bucs, and Carolina. So we're going to have a quick feel for the Falcons in this division. But what about the Bucs and Baker Mayfield's resurgence? Now he's reestablished himself as one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, no doubt, and that team is built off of that defense, and Baker's not shooting himself in the foot like he did in Cleveland a lot. So he's realized that, hey, Mike Evans is pretty good, so I better get him the ball. And, of course, they've been throwing off of Evans to Chris Godwin for a couple years, too. They still don't have much of a running game, so they're not invincible, but definitely put up an impressive win against that tough, rugged Detroit squad last week. So they're going to be, they were my favorites to win coming into the season just because the Falcons, had too much to put together. And they certainly have come out the gate strong.
And the fourth team in the division with Carolina, all you can do is say train wreck. I do want to get your reaction. Obviously, I covered Bryce in college. Exceptional young man, was a great college quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner. And it's just been a comedy of errors since he got to Carolina. Listen, I'm not absolving him of poor play. He has not looked good at all in the first 2 games of the season. And Dave Canales inherited him. But still, to see how they're handling this situation, I want to get your reaction. I think it's a joke. I think you draft a guy number 1 overall, and in with a horrible football team, he stands out there, he battles, he fights, and then in the preseason, you don't even play the guy. One series with they've set him up for failure. And then the way that the benching was handled, this is my problem. It's one thing if you say, listen, we want to get him out of the fire, let him stand on the sideline, watch a veteran and Andy Dalton do it for a while. We think that can help him long term. Instead, it's nope, Andy Dalton gives us our best chance to win. So all the problems that team's got, but Dave Canales basically said it's all on the quarterback. I just think the way they've handled this has been a mess. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's just a really bad situation for Bryce, poorly handled. I don't know how much of it is the owner or the coach. The owner's got his issues.
Sure does.
Making them pick Bryce over Stroud and then fire Frank Bryce because Bryce didn't work out right away. But Bryce is a part of the issue, too. He's 2-16. I think the fact that they don't have any weapons for him, and he's still looking down the field trying to make something happen when, they don't have answers in that offense for him to check it down. He's holding the ball too long and can't block. Nobody's getting open. Adam Thielen hasn't been open in 4 years.
Hadn't been open since he was in Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's his top guy. So I'm like, he doesn't see anything. So, at that point, it's on the coordinator to give him some answers. Just take the check down. That's what I would coach him up to do. Now that he's running the scout team, that's what they said. I would just work going, hey, nobody's open, check it down. Until people guard that, then you can go over the top of it. But, you got to have some people put him back together. They got to get him some weapons. This kid from Pittsburgh was okay, but he wasn't no Jackson. He wasn't no real threat. And heck, Bryce know what it's like to have great receivers coming from Alabama.
I think he might have had better. I think he might have had better receivers at Alabama than he's got in the league. I really do, Orlando.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Well, staying on this topic.
Hopefully they'll get it worked out.
Yeah, for just a minute with where the league's at, and you're a longtime observer. I get it with the analytics. A lot of these 30-something-year-old head coaches, and I'm not saying you had to play in the NFL to coach in the NFL, but most of them didn't play in the league. They've come up through the video department, or like you said, the stats department, the analytics department. They see the game completely different, I think, than somebody who played in the league. And, you could make the argument Mike Vrabel was a dinosaur, and he's out. And a lot of these guys are still coaching. So I'm not saying they're wrong, but it is different. And the way the game's approached is different. And the preseason, you and I come from a time, I was mentioning this earlier in the 70s, when they played 6 preseason games, and played guys. It was about getting the fact that they're not getting anybody ready in the preseason, the sloppiness these first couple weeks with the illegal procedures and all of these mistakes that you would normally make in the preseason. It's the game's exciting. The finishes last week were unbelievable. I get that. But the play is not the caliber of play we should be seeing in the National Football League early on. Would you agree with that?
I concur wholeheartedly. I had the pleasure of being in the meeting with the Rules Committee in Indianapolis this offseason. They were more concerned about the scoring dip. I was like, what about the quality of play? We've seen teams stop practicing. They don't even tackle since the 2011 collective bargaining agreement. But they weren't concerned as much about the quality of play as they were about the points going down. And, while that's a direct line to how many people are watching the game. So the people are watching the game. They're making money. They don't care that it's really a bad product right now. I think that's where we're at. They're making the killing.
Yeah, that's right.
The viewership's up.
And this past weekend was unbelievable. Another thing, and I know you're focused on the Falcons, but is the way the game has been manipulated, the way the rules are, with all the stoppages to play, with can't hit this guy or that guy. You better have. To feel safe, you better have about a 3-score lead with less than 3, because a 2-score lead with less than 3 minutes to go doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, the way you can lengthen these games and play these things out, if you're a team that's got a 13-point lead, a 12-point lead, a 10-point lead with a couple minutes to go, you can't rest, Orlando. You can lose these games easily.
Yeah, no doubt. Unfortunately, I think kind of that started in Super Bowl 51. That game was 90-something plays, for the Falcons. And Ryan Cox is saying, I should have rotated my linemen more. I should have did. They played 2 games. It was 51 plays. That Steeler game was 51 plays. That Super Bowl was 90-something.
Jeez.
So, they can manipulate it and extend things out. And that's something that's going to, that's something that's definitely here to stay.
Yep, it is. It's the modern game, and we still enjoy it. And like you said, it's still a cash cow. There's no doubt about that. And I'm also mad, Orlando. I'm still old school. I'm a free TV guy. If you got to pay for it, I'm probably not going to watch it. And we're headed toward more and more of these games being pay-per-view, aren't we?
Yeah, no doubt. And fortunately for me, my wife shops at that one place that's streaming the games on Thursday nights. I didn't even know I had it. And I was like, she's like, oh, yeah, you got the games. I'm like, I do. All right. But move to someplace else. I'm not going to the people that have those packages show up at the store and stuff. If I move to someplace else, I might not have it.
I know you're talking about. Great stuff, Orlando. I've gone a little long with you. I appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Sure, no problem. I'm on Twitter at DOrlandoAJC, and we need subscribers at AJC.com, our digital website, and we're still printing out the paper these days.
Yeah, do it. It's still real journalism. I know there's a lot of information out there, but real quick, Orlando, thought on this is if you're going to be a doctor, you still got to go to medical school. You still got to pass the CAT scan. If you're going to be a lawyer, you got to go to law school. You got to pass the bar. But these days, anybody can be a journalist, and I'm not sure that's a good thing anymore. There's a lot of watered down journalism out there, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of cheerleaders out there, too, and then people that are paid off by the teams. Then the teams got their own people out there, they can't really be critical of their own franchise.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
They
got their own media departments.
Know where
if you want straightforward
reporting
your
information's coming from.
Yeah, if you want straightforward reporting on the Atlanta Falcons, though, take Orlando's advice and subscribe to the AJC.com, and he will give it to you unfiltered, straight down the middle, and the way it's supposed to be done. Thank you, Orlando.
All right, Gary. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. All right, it's 10:19 here on the Gary Harris Show. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa ready for you this month till the end of the month. Still no joining fee. I mean, all you got to do is go down there, sign up, and start your monthly dues. No joining fee, and also personal training wise, 10% off all personal training packages. You're going to absolutely love the YMCA. I've been a member for over 20 years. I'd love for you to join me. Hey, I want to get a quick mention here on my friend David Akins, longtime high school football coach in this area, administrator, now retired, worked at several different high schools. He and bunch of these former coaches, Darren Hughes is one of them, Chris Hilliker. They play a lot of golf now that they're retired, and pretty much every day. And yesterday out at Old Colony, David Akins on the 8th hole, the par 3, which if you play Old Colony is beautiful par 3, water down the left side, protected by bunkers kind of along the right side, and not an easy hole. I don't know what the distance was playing yesterday, but I see they sent me a picture. Pin was back left. So to get close to that pin, you've got to deal with the bunker on the left and really the water too, for that matter. And David Akins hit a hole-in-one there. Knocked it dead in the hole. So, I meant to mention it on the news last night, WVUA 23, and I forgot. Although right now, as I said, Chase, not a lot of people are able to watch us on the news because we're having transmitter issues, and Xfinity, Spectrum, Dish, DirecTV, we're not on. But congratulations to my friend David Akins. Hole-in-one at Old Colony yesterday, and I've had one way back. I hadn't been playing golf that long when I made mine back in 1996. So I was 32, and I said, well, shoot, man, I'm going to make a bunch of these things. Haven't made one since. But at least I got one. Congratulations, Coach. Bringing you 100% satisfaction and appointments set around your schedule. Give us a call for all your steam cleaning needs, 205-553-9460. Houston Hydro Steam. Quality work you can stand on.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly to mostly sunny today. The high in the upper 80s at 88. Clear tonight, the low at 67. Tomorrow and Saturday, no change. Sunny both days. Highs around 90. And Sunday, mostly sunny, the high also at 90. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Want to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Download the Tide 100.9 app today.
All right, 24 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock here on the Gary Harris Show. We got a time to squeeze in a phone call. If you want to give us a ring in this segment, 205-342-9904 is the number on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline. So give us a ring. Great conversation there with the Orlando Ledbetter. And I don't know how you feel about it. If you're a younger fan like Chase, you don't really know anything different in the NFL. This is the way the game's been played now, probably, like he said, going back to that collective bargaining agreement in 2011 when they really changed the rules on how you can practice in training camp. Training camps used to be brutal. I mean, even into the 2000s. I mean, I've heard Roman Harbor talk about it when he was with the Saints. I mean, but they were tough. A lot of physicality, a lot of hitting, a lot of, old school football to try to get people ready to play, and also try to kind of cull out guys who, weren't, physical enough to play in the league. But, in the effort to make the game safer, which I get, you start with guys launching themselves, and now it's gone down to everything from, the hip toss tackle to if you lead with your head, even if you hit a guy in the chest or the lower extremities. We're seeing guys get ejected for that and targeted for that in college football too. We talk about officiating. That's another thing for officials at every level. The game's gotten harder to officiate. The problem with rules is if you get too many of them, it doesn't make it easier on the officials. It makes it more difficult. And that's kind of where we're at. But the game is a lot different than it was 20 years ago, and certainly than it was 40 or 50 years ago. In fact, if you want to know what I'm talking about and you're younger, let's say you're under 30, just go to Google. Just video some highlights from the 70s or 80s or type in certain players like Lawrence Taylor, Steve Atwater, Jack Lambert. You just see what was allowed. And, when you look at quarterbacks in the yards they throw for today and you say, guys, quarterbacks 50 years ago, could never do that. Keep in mind that the Joe Namaths and the John Unitas and the John Brodys and the Bob Greaseys and the Roger Staubachs, you go on and on, Terry Bradshaw's, what was allowed, Ken Stabler, what was allowed then and what defenders were able to do to those quarterbacks. Now, there's a fine line. There's a middle ground, I think, between where we're at now and where we were then. What the abuse that they took should not have been allowed. I mean, quarterbacks were absolutely free game. And they are in a vulnerable position when they're throwing the ball. And I get why you want to protect them. But in those days, and in fact, if you look at some of the highlight videos that the NFL put out on the days when we were still on VHS tapes, they would put out fantastic hits and all this. Every hit that you'd see on these highlight tapes would be illegal now. So the game is a lot different. And I think the problem is in an effort to, as I've said before, you can't legislate injuries out of the game. You just can't. It's a physical game. But in an effort to make the game more of an offensive game, quarterbacks not having to worry about taking the hits, we've kind of watered it down a little bit. It is a violent game. There's no doubt about it. And when I say violence, I mean it. And then I've actually had a couple people mention to me about what I've said on my show about, you don't want guys to get hurt, do you? And I said, no, I don't. But it's part of the gig. And what does bother me is when it's like Tua. I've said this before. It's his decision. If he wants to play, I back him. It's not for me to tell him to a time, you need to retire. I'm not qualified to tell him that. And I don't like it when people do. It's his life. And he did just sign, a $255 million contract or whatever it is. He should feel some responsibility to his team. He should feel some responsibility to his organization. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with him saying, you know what? They invested in me. I want to play for them. Now, if he also says he wants to retire, then I'm going to back him there too. But my point is, football players want to play football. And we can't make this two-hand touch. If you ever do, then I do think you're going to lose your audience. But my point is, it is a violent game, but it's a inherent, you take that risk when you sign up for it. You know what you're getting into. Like I said before, is it not a risk when a coal miner goes that 300 feet down in a coal mine? Of course it's a risk. Is it not a risk when a local beat police officer puts on his jacket, his bulletproof jacket every day and walks the street? Of course there's a risk. There's a risk in a lot of professions. You don't think it's a risk when people are climbing these towers and doing different things, but you understand the risk, and nobody makes you do it. Nobody makes someone play football. So if you're going to play, you assume the risk. Yes, you want it to be as safe as it can be, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've been to NFL games on the sidelines, and some of you have as well. When a 280-pound defensive lineman fires off against a 320-pound offensive lineman, it's a collision. There's a chance that over time you're going to do damage to your body or damage to your brain. We don't want that, but that's the risk you take when you play the game. It just goes with the territory. All right, we'll take a
talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
All right, welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. It is 10:34 here on the program, and it's Speeg's time. Jeff Spiegel, longtime sports anchor, host of The Zone at ABC 3340, with us for his weekly visit. And I got a listener that going to get on you here in a minute. I'm going to pass along his message to you. We'll wait. But good morning, buddy. How's it going?
Really good. I might hang up though.
No, it's not that bad. He just wants you. He reacted to something that you said and wants this. Well, let's just go ahead and get it out of the way because it ties into our first topic. Obviously, is going to be Alabama, Wisconsin, and then the bye week. Curtis is a great listener of the show. He texted me. Let me find the text that he sent. From last. This is 2 weeks ago. So I guess it said, I totally disagree with Jeff Spiegel, and it's not me being a homer. Last time I checked, Alabama hasn't had any issues beating Georgia lately. Isn't Kirby like 1-5 against Bama? Jeff must think that DeBoer, well, he didn't say stinks, but he used another term. Wish you had a little more time on your show, brother, because I would call in to have a rebuttal for that. And then he texted me this morning, and he said, I'm curious to know when you speak to Jeff today, are you going to ask on this date, September 19, does he still believe that Alabama doesn't have a chance when Georgia comes into Tuscaloosa on 28 Saturday after the way Georgia performed against Kentucky? Looking forward to your show later on, brother. So, do you still think Alabama doesn't have a chance?
No, listen, I never said Alabama had no chance. I just said I didn't think they'd beat Georgia. And I mean, I still don't think they will.
Right.
And you can't look at what happened to Georgia at Kentucky and say, well, Georgia's not who we thought they were. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, maybe that's what Georgia thought when they saw South Carolina throttle Kentucky like they did. Maybe that's what they thought about Kentucky. Maybe they thought, hey, Kentucky's not who we thought they were, and we really didn't think they were that great anyway. And then Kentucky just plays them like, just like they were Super Bowl. Yeah, should have won the game. And again, like Mark Stoops does every time he plays Georgia.
I know.
He forgets how to coach.
He can't help himself, can he? He just can't help himself. I mean, what Jeff's referring to is a number call, but late in the game, I know it's 4th and 8, but you got to hang on to the ball there and give yourself a chance. You punt it back, and Beck had not had a good game, but on second down, he made a heck of a throw, and that pretty much ended the game. But even if you don't to make it, you're still probably going to get the ball back. Maybe you hold Georgia to field goal and you're, down by a little more, but you have a chance. Giving them the ball back, Jeff, I think everybody around the country is just scratching their head. I mean, go for it. Try to win the game. Try to make it first, but they didn't and they lost. Of course,
no doubt about it.
The calm before the storm with Alabama and Wisconsin. We'll dive in full speed next week, but Alabama, Georgia. Let's get to Alabama, Wisconsin, because I will say this, and I agree with you on if you think Georgia's going to win the game. I mean, a lot of people do. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will say this. I do think Alabama, more than any other program in the country, the goalposts move on them all the time. You and I both know this. There's been a lot of people that have been predicting the demise now for the last few years, and it hasn't happened. Even when you look back at last year, most people, I don't think outside of the SEC, realize Alabama is the defending SEC champion. They won the Southeastern Conference, not Georgia. I think that the narrative has been that Georgia surpassed Alabama. But even last week, and I thought Alabama was going to win the game. You did too. But there were a lot of people that said, hey, this is a test. This is a big test. Alabama's not used to going north and playing a Big Ten team in their stadium. And let me phrase it this way, Jeff. I think if this is any other team in the league other than Alabama, if Georgia goes in there, Ole Miss, LSU, Auburn, you name the team, and they beat Wisconsin 42-10, all you're going to hear is, what an impressive win for the SEC. Wow, what a statement. All I've heard, or a lot of what I've heard this week, has been, well, Wisconsin, Tyler Van Dyke went down, which is true. They're not very good. I wouldn't call this that big a win. Goalpost got moved. It really is a nice win, I think. What do you think about the performance, and where do you rate that win for the Tide based on that going into the game, there were a lot of people said they had better be on upset alert.
Well, listen, I think it was a great win. I think it was a great win, and I'm capitalizing the G, the R, the E, the A, and the T. It was a great win. And they made so much improvement from the week before to this week. You know, they had 3 turnovers against South Florida. They had no turnovers against Wisconsin. They couldn't create turnovers against South Florida. They created 2 turnovers against Wisconsin. Just played just so much better from start to finish. And, you know, Ryan Williams is tremendous. I mean, just a tremendous football player to just be only 17 years old. Jalen Milroe was sharp, I thought. I thought he was terrific. I thought the defense was, you know, smothering on Wisconsin. When Van Dyke went out, I mean, it was like blood in the water. And L.T. Overton and Deontay Lawson and Malachi Moore and those guys were just getting after it. So I think it was a great win. Now, Wisconsin was a middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team.
True.
That's a fact. But they went in and they throttled them, you know, and not many teams go to Camp Randall and beat Wisconsin by 32 points. And that's what they did.
Georgia, we've already talked about it. Fortunate to get out of there, but I'm with you. And Curtis, by the way, has already social media messaged me back and said, hey, it's Jeff's opinion. Don't agree with it, but he's certainly entitled to his opinion, and which you are. And I think a lot of people share it. So, but I'm glad that, you know, people want to interact when I have you on the show, and people enjoy your segment. For Georgia, though, you can't play the comparison game. I'm with you 100%. I mean, what happened in Kentucky's got nothing to do with what's going to happen for a week. What do you think about the fact that it's only 3 weeks in, but this seems like a good bye week for both these teams. Not only are they playing each other next week, but both are banged up. Both kind of hit the reset button. I'm glad that they both are on bye, because I'd hate for one to have to play this weekend, then one be on bye, and we have to hear it all next week about how that impacts the game. They're both going to, you know, get well or get as healthy as they can be and full speed ahead next week, right?
Well, and this was totally by design. I mean, when the schedules were drawn up, everyone knew this was going to be the marquee game on September 28th, maybe the marquee game of the year in the Southeastern Conference. So the powers that be that drew up the schedules wanted these two teams to be at full strength, because the Southeastern Conference all eyes are going to be on the SEC September 28th at 6:30 when those two teams get together. And it's going to be great that they're both at, you know, as full strength as they can be after a bye week, and that they can just go at it and let the world see the two best teams, you know, I think that the Southeastern Conference has to offer.
Yeah, it's going to be outstanding. All right, let's get to some other games since Alabama and Georgia don't play this week. Let's talk about Auburn, Arkansas, because I think this is a big game. Jeff, and I know I'm doing most of the talking, and I shouldn't, but I want you to react to some things that I'm thinking about here. I'm breaking the SEC down into tiers. I think the top tier is Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri. And I might even put Tennessee and Texas at the top there. Then I think you got the mid-tier with Auburn, Arkansas, those other teams. And I think right at the bottom right now, you know, you got Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Florida. But first, your thoughts. Do you think this league is tiered? I think it's a top-heavy league. 6 of the 16 are probably the 6 of the best teams in the country. Then I think there's a mid-level drop-off, and then there's a bottom. How do you see the league through 3 weeks?
No, I think you're totally dead on accurate with that. And I think, and we talked about this on the Zone Sunday, that, you know, if you're Auburn and you want to go to a bowl game and you want to make improvement from last year to this year, and you do, and you want to go 7-5, you got to win this game. I mean, you got to win this game, because if you don't win this game, I mean, the other games on the schedule look incredibly hard to win. And, you just have to. And Hank Brown, you know, was terrific, you know, in his first start, you know, against New Mexico, but that was the worst defense statistically in the FBS. So Arkansas is going to bring somewhat of a better defense. I'm not sure how great defensively they are, but I do know this. Offensively, I mean, they're legit. And you can look at the UAB Arkansas game, and to me, I put that in the same bowl as the Georgia-Kentucky game. You know, how dialed in was Arkansas for that UAB game? I mean, not very. You know, they weren't very sharp offensively, especially early. But, you know, they grounded out and they found a way to get it done. This could be one of those, you know, 38-35 things. In 2010, I covered this game at Jordan-Hare Stadium when Cam Newton was the quarterback for Auburn. And I think Auburn won something like 63-48 or something like that. It was the most crazy offensive shootout game I have ever seen. And this is not going to rival that one, but it could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 38-35. But I think it's a must win. I think it's a must win for Auburn. That's a lot of pressure to put on a redshirt freshman quarterback. But, look, he brought this on himself after the win over New Mexico. He said something about, you know, they're going to go out and dominate Arkansas.
Said that. Sure did. Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if the redshirt freshman has got the moxie to pull this one off.
Who do you like in that game? Who do you think gets it done?
I do like Auburn by 3. I mean, I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think Auburn has certainly got, you know, the offensive weapons, you know, to get it done. Cam Coleman's questionable for that game, but I think this is one of those games where, you know, people are wondering, you know, where Malcolm Simmons is. Where's Malcolm Simmons? You know, he was great in the first game, but, you know, played 24 snaps or 5 snaps in the second game, 24 snaps in the third game, but only had 1 target. And people are wondering, you know, maybe when his coming out party is going to be. And, you know, this may be it. And, but I think Auburn wins that by 3, but I think it could be one of those wild and woolly offensive affairs.
Well, we only got 3 SEC versus SEC matchups. We just talked about one of them. The biggest one, of course, is Tennessee at Oklahoma. The Josh Heupel subplot, having played there for Bob Stoops and then getting fired by Bob Stoops in 2015 after Oklahoma got lit up by Clemson. Clemson's defensive coordinator was Brent Venables. So there's all kinds of tie-ins there. To me, Tennessee, of course, like you said, man, it's hard to look at games. And Oklahoma's going to be at home at night. Their SEC opener, they're going to be ready to go. But Tennessee just looks like a juggernaut. Now, you have to take into account, Jeff, the competition. But I just don't know if Oklahoma can stay with them. What do you see in this game?
Well, I'm throwing out the Kent State game, and I'm going back to the NC State game where they were in Charlotte and, you know, a quote-unquote neutral site.
Right.
But you know, Tennessee brought it defensively. And defensively, they're better than I thought they were going to be. I mean, they surprised me. I mean, how good they were defensively. I mean, offensively, we know with Nico and you know, Sampson at running back. I mean, they got weapons there. But defensively, I mean, they really surprised me in that game. How they just totally Grayson McCall just kind of came unglued, you know, in that game. So, I mean, if defense travels, and it does. I mean, I like Tennessee to go into Boomer Sooner land and get the win there.
All right. We've got a high-level game with Tennessee and Oklahoma. We've got kind of a mid-level SEC game with Auburn and Arkansas. And then we've got a bottom-feeder game in Starkville with Mississippi State and Florida. I mean, Mississippi State got taken to the woodshed by Toledo. Florida, you know, if you pay attention to this kind of thing and read the internet, and I've talked to some people in Gainesville that are in the media, that if Billy Napier doesn't win at Mississippi State on Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon, he might as well not even get on the plane to go back to Gainesville. You know, this is a matchup. And Jeff Lebby's in his first year, but still, man, he needs to gain a little confidence. So this is a matchup where even though both these teams look to be really, really, really bad, there's a lot on the line, Jeff.
Well, look, I mean, if he does lose that game in Starkville, let's put it this way. He's got enough money where he can do one of 2 things. He can charter a flight back to Gainesville if he wants to. He can Uber a ride all the way back to Gainesville if he wants to. But you're right. I mean, if he doesn't win that game, I mean, they just may fire him, you know, before he gets to the locker room, like what happened to who was the Arkansas coach? Was it Chad who got
Morris
fired like before he got to the locker room? No, I mean these are the two most disappointing teams in the SEC. I mean, I know a lot of State fans, and they expected more out of Jeff Lebby in his first year. I mean, they just did, and they're embarrassed, you know, that Toledo came to their place and just, you know, neutralized the cowbells and all that, and and just beat the Dogs just unmercifully. So yeah, these are two really bad football teams, and but Napier, this is one he's got to win to keep his job for one more week. He's not going to be able to keep his job, for the whole year. But if he wins this one, then he gets to keep it for at least one more week.
All right, Jeff, before we close it out, and I'm asking everybody about this, but this Arch Manning phenomenon, he's a Manning. Listen, Archie's his granddad, Peyton and Eli are his uncles. He's a phenomenal athlete, probably a better athlete than those two, runs like Archie, throws it like they do. And he got in last week after Ewers went down against UTSA and lit it up. Now I'm reading a lot of Texas people say he should remain the quarterback. Now they get ULM this weekend. We know ULM is 2-0 and under Bryant Vincent and beat UAB handily a couple weeks ago. But I guess that's the nature of having a Manning that's talented, that you could have the Heisman Trophy front runner in Quinn Ewers, and now some people out there don't want him back as the quarterback. What do you make of it?
Well, first, he probably is going to remain the quarterback, because I think Ewers with that strained abdomen is probably going to be out at least, 3 weeks, from what I heard initially. So, you know how that goes. I mean, the longer you're out, and the better Arch Manning plays, the more pressure is on Sark, to keep Arch in that position. Although technically, the old slogan goes, you're not supposed to lose your position to injury. But in the quarterback's case, you ride the guy with a hot hand, and it was shocking how fast he got down the field, but as they told me, they said, look, this isn't Peyton and Eli's son. This is Cooper Manning's son, who was a wide receiver, back in his day, and he had some speed.
Could really run, yeah.
So it's been fun to watch and interesting to watch, but Sark's a quarterback. He's an old quarterback. He's been there, and he's been through what Quinn Ewers has gone through. So I'm sure there's some sympathy there, but there's also going to be a lot of public opinion support, to keep Arch Manning in there, the better and better that he plays.
Great stuff, Jeff. And real quickly, pass it along to the listeners what you got coming up on the Zone Sunday night, and also how they can follow you on Twitter.
Sure. We'll recap what happened over the weekend. We'll look ahead to the Bama-Georgia game Sunday at 10:30 on ABC 3340, at Speaks 3340.
Or Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly to mostly sunny today. The high in the upper 80s at 88. Clear tonight, the low at 67. Tomorrow and Saturday, no change. Sunny both days. Highs around 90. And Sunday, mostly sunny. The high also at 90. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
All right, 10:55. Welcome back into Gary Harris Show. A quick note for tomorrow. T-Town Sports giveaway for tomorrow with T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery. Our Bama football trivia giveaway, going to be giving away another great print. All right, let's jump out on the phone line real quickly with George over in Macon, Georgia. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Gary. How's it going today?
Doing well.
Yeah, speaking of, the new rules and the safety rules and all that, don't you think guaranteed contracts have a lot to do with that? Because now that they're guaranteed, they don't want to pay that money if the player is hurt.
Oh,
so
absolutely. There's no doubt about it. That's a part of it. As we said, TV ratings, wanting to keep the quarterbacks, the star quarterbacks in the game. There's a lot of reasons for it. I do think some of it genuinely is health concerns. I'm not going to dispute that, but at the same time, I think a lot of it is other reasons too that you're alluding to. But as I said, it's a violent game. You cannot legislate the physicality out of the game. And the fact that they're trying to do that, I think it's watered the game down a little bit.
Oh, I definitely believe that also. Remember, they used to have the ESPN used to play all the hard hits. Now that, they don't even do that anymore.
No.
And that was a good reel. And another thing, I kind of believe like you. 2 weeks ago, Wisconsin. A lot of people say, they'll beat Alabama. But nobody has a stadium like Camp Randall. And when I heard that, I just want to say, are y'all kidding me? I mean, it's Wisconsin. And even back, 2 weeks ago, I said, no, they don't even have a chance against Alabama. But everybody wants to, write the demise of Alabama because I guess it is, Alabama fatigue. Just like 20 years ago, everybody was, I was tired of USC having a good team, and their little dynasty only lasted, about 6 years. So you can imagine one that's lasting 17, 18 years.
Oh, yeah. There is that. Bama fatigue is real, and it's even more so because it's Alabama. And they did it with Bryant, and they did it all the way back to Wallace Wade. And people just, it's one thing to put up with winning. It's another thing to have to put up with winning when it's Alabama. You're right. People want to see them go down. That is a fact, George. Hey, man, I got to get to the end of the show, but thank you so much for calling in.
Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, George. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hey, we got a pretty good college football game tonight on ESPN at 6:30. Just by the way, South Alabama at Appalachian State tonight up in beautiful Boone, North Carolina. That's 6:30 kickoff on ESPN tonight. All right, that's going to do it for the show. We've got the T-Town Sports Daily coming up for Chase Brumfeld. I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for listening, everybody. Had a fun show again. Tomorrow morning, we'll be in studio. Since there's no home game, we'll not be at Innisfree Irish Pub, but we'll have the Bama football trivia contest. But T-Town, Menswear and T-Town Gallery, and going to be giving away another great prize. So I'll talk to you then. And have a great day. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
Thank you for listening